When most people think about World War II, they imagine famous battles. Hitler, today, tanks rolling through Europe, and Allied heroes defeating Nazi Germany. But hidden beneath the history taught in schools lies another story. A darker story. A story of secret massacres, forgotten soldiers, colonial troops erased from textbooks, governments hiding war crimes, and ordinary civilians trapped between empires fighting for global power. Because World War II was not just fought in Europe. It stretched across Africa, the Middle East, and remote islands most people have never heard of. Millions died without monuments. Entire communities vanished without recognition. And some of the war's most shocking secrets remained hidden for decades. Tonight, we uncover the secret war history schools never teach. Before we dive into the main story, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell notification button for more interesting video like this. The forgotten truths buried behind the deadliest conflict in human history. And by the end of this documentary, you may never see World War II the same way again. Most school textbooks focus heavily on Europe during World War II. Germany invades Poland in 1939. Britain and France declare war. The Nazis conquer much of Europe. Eventually, the Allies push back. But the real war was far larger. World War II became a truly global conflict involving over 100 million people from across the world. Colonial empires pulled millions into the fighting. Britain recruited troops from India and Africa. France mobilized soldiers from its colonies. The Soviet Union drew fighters from dozens of ethnic groups. Japan expanded across East and Southeast Asia. And the United States transformed into a global military power. Yet many of these stories receive little attention today. For example, British India provided over 2.5 million soldiers during World War II, the largest volunteer army in history. Indian troops fought in North Africa, Italy, Burma, and the Middle East. African troops from Senegal, Nigeria, Kenya, Chad, Algeria, Morocco, and other colonies fought across multiple continents. Chinese civilians suffered one of the deadliest invasions in modern history during Japan's expansion into China. Yet many Western narratives still frame the war mainly through Europe and America. Because history is often shaped by the countries with the most power after war's end, and many uncomfortable truths were pushed aside. World War II saw horrifying violence far beyond the Holocaust. Some massacres became globally known. Others were buried for decades. One of the least discussed atrocities occurred in Nanjing, China, after Nanjing Massacre in 1937. After Japanese forces captured the city, hundreds of thousands of civilians and prisoners of war were killed over several weeks. Mass executions, torture, and widespread sexual violence shocked even some foreign witnesses living in the city. Yet for many years, global awareness of the massacre remained limited outside Asia. Then there was the Bengal famine of 1943. During the war, millions of Indians died from starvation under British colonial rule. Food shortages, wartime policies, inflation, and transportation failures worsened the disaster. Historians still debate the exact causes and responsibility, but many argue colonial wartime decisions significantly increased the death toll. An estimated 2 to 3 million people died. Yet the famine rarely appears prominently in mainstream World War II discussions. Across Eastern Europe, entire villages were destroyed during Nazi anti-partisan campaigns. In Belarus alone, thousands of villages were burned. Civilians were executed in retaliation for resistance activity. And in Africa and Asia, forced labor systems fueled wartime economies. Millions suffered outside the spotlight of famous battles. One of the war's biggest hidden stories involves colonial soldiers. When European empires went to war, they relied heavily on colonized people. African troops fought for Britain and France across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Indian soldiers fought from North Africa to Burma. Chinese forces battled Japan for years before Pearl Harbor. Yet after the war, many of these soldiers received little recognition. The Senegalese tirailleurs of France fought fiercely against Nazi Germany during the 1940 invasion of France. Some were massacred by German troops after capture because Nazi ideology viewed black soldiers as racially inferior. Moroccan Gummiers helped break German defensive lines in Italy. Indian troops fought brutal jungle warfare against Japanese forces in Burma. At the Battle of Kohima in 1944, British Indian forces helped stop Japan's advance toward India. Some historians later called it one of Britain's greatest battles. Yet outside military history circles, few people know about it. Colonial soldiers often returned home to discrimination and broken promises. Some veterans later became leaders in anti-colonial independence movements. Because after fighting for European empires abroad, many began asking why they were denied freedom at home. World War II unintentionally weakened colonialism itself, and empires slowly began collapsing after the war ended. Many people never learned that Africa became a major battlefield during World War II. Fighting erupted across North Africa, East Africa, and the Mediterranean. Italian dictator Benito Mussolini dreamed of building a new Roman Empire in Africa. Meanwhile, German commander Erwin Rommel led Axis forces through North Africa. African civilians were trapped between competing empires. Entire communities faced displacement, forced labor, and food shortages. Meanwhile, colonial governments recruited massive numbers of African troops. French West Africans fought under French command. British colonial forces recruited soldiers from Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, and elsewhere. The war transformed African societies economically and politically. Cities expanded, military infrastructure grew, and returning veterans carried new political ideas. Many African independence leaders later emerged from wartime experiences. Yet despite Africa's major role in the conflict, its contribution is often barely mentioned in mainstream war documentaries. Behind the battlefields, governments raced to develop terrifying new technologies. Some of the darkest wartime secrets involved human experimentation. Nazi doctors conducted horrific medical experiments inside concentration camps. Victims were exposed to freezing temperatures, diseases, chemicals, and surgical procedures without consent. Meanwhile, in occupied China, Japan's secretive Unit 731 carried out biological and chemical warfare experiments on prisoners. Victims reportedly included civilians, political prisoners, and captured soldiers. For decades after the war, many details remained hidden from the public. Then there was the atomic bomb. In 1945, the United States dropped nuclear weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The bombings instantly killed tens of thousands. Radiation exposure continued affecting survivors for decades. The war ended shortly afterward, but humanity entered the nuclear age. For the first time in history, humans possessed the power to destroy entire cities within seconds. And many scientists who helped build these weapons later feared what they had unleashed. Every major power during World War II used propaganda. Governments controlled information tightly. Movies, newspapers, radio broadcasts, and posters shaped public opinion. Some atrocities were exaggerated. Others were hidden completely. Governments censored military failures to maintain morale. And after the war, many countries carefully shaped historical narratives to protect national reputations. Some Allied war crimes received far less attention than Nazi crimes. The Soviet Union concealed mass executions and political repression. Colonial powers often ignored abuses inside their empires. Japan faced international criticism over wartime atrocities, but some events remained politically sensitive for decades. History became not just a record of events, but a battle over memory itself. What societies choose to remember, and what they choose to forget, often shapes future generations. And some of World War II's most uncomfortable truths remain controversial even today. Most people think World War II ended cleanly in 1945. But in many places, violence continued long afterward. Europe lay devastated. Millions were displaced. Colonial tensions exploded. Civil wars erupted. And the Cold War began almost immediately. Former allies became rivals. The United States and Soviet Union entered a dangerous global struggle for influence. Meanwhile, anti-colonial movements gained momentum across Asia and Africa. Countries that had supplied troops and resources during the war now demanded independence. India gained independence in 1947. Other colonies followed over the next decades. Some historians argue World War II destroyed not only Nazi Germany, but also the old European colonial order. The war reshaped borders, economies, technologies, and global power forever. And its consequences still influence the modern world today. So why are many of these stories rarely taught? Partly because school systems simplify history. There is limited classroom time. Governments emphasize national narratives. And uncomfortable truths are often harder to explain. But hidden history matters. Because understanding the full reality of war reveals something important. World War II was not simply a story of heroes and villains. It was also a story of empire, colonialism, propaganda, civilian suffering, resistance, and global human tragedy. Millions of forgotten people shaped history, even if textbooks barely mention them. And perhaps the greatest danger of forgotten history is repeating the mistakes humanity refuses to remember. But some historians believe the most shocking World War II secrets still remain classified even today. Hidden documents, secret intelligence operations, lost wartime experiments, and undiscovered mass graves buried beneath forests, deserts, and oceans around the world. Because even after more than 80 years, the deadliest war in human history may still be hiding secrets humanity has never fully uncovered. For more videos like this, click like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.